Every skill I've ever learned had one obvious growth lever, something that you could pull and consistently see results every single time. And simply pulling that lever accounted for 80% of the progress you made in that skill. When I learned to play guitar, that lever was finger-picking patterns played to a metronome. When I'm in the gym, the lever is how much time am I under the bar. In almost every skill I've learned, that lever has been something stupidly simple. But also, pulling that lever is something that's kind of uncomfortable, and people would rather find something complicated but comfortable than doing the simple thing that's uncomfortable. Once upon a time, there was a girl trying to learn English, and I saw that she had her notebook opened, and in her notebook, I saw this alphabetically ordered map of English sounds to Spanish sounds, all color-coded with like different colored pens. It looked like she spent at least an hour or two drawing it up. The reason people feel like they're not making any progress in language learning is because they spend all their time dancing around the lever instead of just pulling it. They cycle through flashcards, grammar exercises, speaking drills, language learning apps, a whole rotation of tools that feel productive but just end up adding complexity and taking away time from what actually matters, what matters most. What is going on, guys? My name is Nick. I'm the creator of Lengualytics and a fluent speaker of the Spanish language. There's really two issues you need to solve to be able to progress in a language fast. First, you have to find what the growth lever really is in language learning, and secondly, you have to know what it looks like to pull it. Luckily for you, in my opinion, language learning has literally the simplest growth lever of every skill I've ever tried to learn. And that growth lever is input. Your brain learns a language by receiving messages in that language at a level it understands. Over time, your mind will use its pattern recognition abilities to build an internal system in your head that connects sounds from that new language into meaning for you. It's how we all learned our first language, and it's how we're all gonna learn our second language. A lot of study tools do give you some amount of input. Flashcards can help you learn specific words. Grammar exercises have example sentences in your target language. But most of the time you're spending with those tools are you learning about the language, not necessarily acquiring the language, but learning things about it. And a lot of time you're also just testing yourself. You're also almost just seeing how good am I at this level. And testing yourself isn't really helping you progress in a language. So even when those tools do deliver input, it comes in droplets. One word on a flashcard at a time. One sentence buried in a grammar explanation. 10 vocab words in a Duolingo session. The input is coming out like water comes out of a leaky faucet. Barely any at all. But listening to the language you want to learn at a level you understand gives your brain thousands of data points. Vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, intonation, word order, context, all at the same time. Your brain processes it all simultaneously without you having to sort it into categories or pick something to focus on. Both a leaky faucet and a fire hose will be able to fill a pool with water, but only one of them will fill that pool with water within your lifetime. Between all the context switching, the planning, the drilling, the testing that goes into traditional study, you just end up dancing around the growth lever that actually would help you progress. So that's the lever, input. Massive amounts of input. Now the question is, what does it look like to actually pull it? Most beginners approach a language study first. They say they're gonna learn the grammar, they're gonna learn the vocab, and then once they feel comfortable enough, they're gonna start listening to real native content. The problem is that ready never comes because there's more to language than just knowing the rules and knowing some words. And no amount of study can prepare you for that. I haven't said this in a video in a while, but truly, you could know every single grammar rule. You could know every single direct translation from Spanish to English, vice versa, and you still would not be able to understand a Spanish speaker speaking at a normal pace. Study first sets you up for failure because you get all these promises that, yeah, eventually you'll be able to understand native content, just keep studying, and it never ever happens. It never even gets you to the point where you can understand a slow native speaker, let alone a full speed native speaker. But if you learn a language input first, first, you flip that whole paradigm on its head. Instead of studying until you feel like you're ready, you do the uncomfortable part first. You listen to actual content in your target language first. You let the input be the driving force of your learning. Only when something is confusing you or really bugging you do you turn to study. You use direct translations and grammar explanations as training wheels or a life raft. They are not the plan in themselves. The difference is where study sits in the process. Study first learning treats input like some final exam you're preparing for. Input first learning treats study as a tool you reach for when you need it and you put down when you don't. You'll never study away your need for input. No amount of grammar rules or flashcards are gonna take you to the point where you can understand a native speaker speaking their language. But you can definitely take in enough input to stop relying on direct translations and stop consciously thinking about grammar. As language learners, our job isn't to rebuild the language we're trying to learn from scratch in our heads in a rational way. Our job is to listen to so much of the language at an accessible level that we begin to understand it automatically without any conscious thought. A lot of people will tell you you need an assortment of tools to learn a language. You need flashcards for vocabulary, you need grammar explanations for structure, you need a tutor to help you speak, you need a language learning app to help you review. It just never ends. You just need so many different tools, and all those things are going to help you learn a language. I just think that framing creates a complexity that really doesn't need to exist. I'm not saying you can't use variety. You should do whatever you think is helping you get input. What I am saying is you don't strictly need variety. You can just do the one thing that works for you well. Whenever I go to the gym, I don't have that many exercises I like. I just do the ones I like, and they work. I've been lifting for 10 years. I know what I like to do, and those are the ones that work. Adding variety just adds a bunch of mental load that you don't need. It adds so much unnecessary complexity to something that at its core is very simple. And after 1,000 hours of language learning, again, I just know what works. I feel like some people have it in their head that me, as a fluent speaker, I'm like doing 8 different activities every day to maintain my fluency or something, when in reality, all I'm doing is watching YouTubers I like to watch, having conversations with people who I talk to in Spanish. That's really all I do. I'm not here with a giant flashcard deck. I'm not here with 6 tutors. I am just a person who's found the lever, the growth lever, to help me continue improving, and every day I just pull that lever. It's very simple. We've been so conditioned by traditional learning to think that we need to build ourselves curriculums, that we have to learn things in specific orders. And I'm a computer science major. I agree that there's some subjects where that's helpful, but language learning isn't one of those places. There's no objective best order to learn your grammar rules or learn certain vocab words, and even if there was, I just don't feel like it's worth it to go looking for it when you already have a viable path to fluency, which is just input. I think the honest reason people default to studying is because listening to a foreign language is hard and uncomfortable. That is the real reality, in my opinion. It's like standing on the edge of a swimming pool and not wanting to jump in, right? It's like, I just don't want to do it. I've had this feeling before. When I first got into input, do you really think I wanted to listen to a foreign language that I understood basically none of? Of course not. I really didn't want to do that. I had to jump in. I had to jump into the pool. And that's why I think people are kind of standing around the pool, looking at the pool, measuring the pool. They don't want to jump in. I once reviewed a video where a guy said to learn Spanish, you have to speak to the beat of a metronome. You have to speak to the beat of a metronome. Instead of just listening to your language, you have to set up this weird, elaborate exercise every day and like wait for a metronome to go back and forth and try to speak to the rhythm of the metronome. You have to do that. That's how you learn a language. That's how far people are willing to go to circumvent discomfort. They're willing to create a weirder, more complex lever just to avoid doing the hard but simple thing. So the best way to study a language is just to listen to the language. It's very simple. Turn off the leaky faucet, turn on the fire hose, and just blast yourself in the face with input at a level you can understand. And if you're looking for that fire hose, I made a website that sets up that fire hose and points it directly at your face. It's called Lengualytics. It's the weirdest call to action I've ever done, but the link is in the description. Check it out if you're interested. Thank you for watching the video. I also want to mention, whenever you click a link in the description, it usually takes you to some page where you have to sign up or do some action. On my website, you can just search around the website without even being signed up or signed in. I just hit my mic, sorry, Mike. So if you want to look around, it's actually very, very easy. Anyway.